You know how humans have this weird reputation across the galaxy for being absolutely batshit crazy when it comes to caring for dangerous animals? Well, let me tell you about the day that particular quirk of ours saved an entire space station, caught a smuggling ring, and somehow got me promoted to head of Interspecies Child Care. Yeah, that's apparently a real position now. I'm Captain Jack Roundhouse, Jackie to my friends, which somehow includes half the dangerous predator species in the galaxy. Current assignment: Human Diplomatic Liaison on Space Station Omega-7, proudly keeping the peace between 17 sapient species and making sure nobody eats anybody else during trade negotiations. It's basically like being a kindergarten teacher, except the kids are all ambassadors who can vote on whether to blow up your planet. It was just another Tuesday morning, which we still call Tuesday even though we're in space, because humans are stubborn like that, when station security calmed me with the kind of message that makes you wish you'd called in sick. Captain Roundhouse, we have a situation at Docking Bay 3. The Nexus Predators are here. Now, if you've never seen a Nexus Predator, imagine a velociraptor had a baby with a tiger, then that baby grew up and bench-pressed a rhinoceros. They're 9 feet tall, covered in armored scales, and have enough teeth to make a great white shark feel professionally inadequate. They're also, surprisingly, one of the most sophisticated civilizations in the galaxy. Turns out, being an apex predator gives you a lot of free time to develop advanced physics when you don't have to worry about being eaten. Tell me they're not hungry, I said, already speed-walking to the docking bay. The security officer's nervous laugh didn't help. They say they need to speak with you specifically, something about cubs. I stopped mid-stride, causing a startled Globon to slither into a wall trying to avoid me. Sorry, Gary, I called out to the embarrassed slug-like alien before turning back to my comm. Did you just say cubs, as in baby Nexus Predators? As in multiple mini versions of the galaxy's most efficient killing machines. Affirmative, 3 of them, and Captain, they're asking for human assistance. The docking bay doors hissed open to reveal exactly the kind of scene that would give most species nightmares. 2 adult Nexus Predators, their scales shimmering that distinct obsidian rainbow pattern that made them look like oil slicks with teeth, stood flanking 3 smaller versions of themselves. The cubs were about the size of adult tigers, which was somehow both less and more terrifying than I'd expected. Ambassador KRK, the larger of the adults, clicked her secondary jaw in what I'd learned was their version of a polite greeting. Captain Roundhouse, we require your species' unique services. Behind them, I could see various other alien species pressed against the observation windows, probably taking bets on how quickly I'd be eaten. The cubs were already play-fighting, which involved the kind of moves you'd normally see in a professional wrestling match, except with more teeth and actual killing potential. Ambassador, I said, bowing slightly, because when something can eat you in one bite, you err on the side of politeness. What can humanity do for the Nexus Confederation today? KRK's mate, whose name I couldn't pronounce without risking a tongue injury, stepped forward. We have an emergency summit regarding the Relian trade dispute. All Nexus representatives are required. We need. There was a pause as the translation matrix searched for the right words. We need a babysitter. And that's how I learned that even the most terrifying predators in known space trust humans with their kids. Though, honestly, after what happened next, I'm still not sure if that says more about their wisdom or our insanity. Probably both. You know that moment when you realize the universe is laughing at you? Not just a chuckle, but full-on belly laughs. That's exactly how I felt standing there, staring at 3 hyperactive Nexus cubs while their parents explained why humans were their go-to species for emergency babysitting. Your kind has a remarkable history of nurturing dangerous offspring, KRK explained, while one of the cubs, the one they called Kevin, because apparently even Nexus Predators can have a weird sense of humor, attempted to climb the docking bay's carbon fiber support beam. We have studied the historical records. I knew exactly what she meant. Humanity's reputation for being universal babysitters started about 30 years ago when a Drachnid queen had an emergency diplomatic meeting during hatching season. The only available help was a human zoologist who'd spent his career rehabilitating Komodo dragons. The guy managed to keep 40 baby drades alive and happy for 3 days, armed with nothing but a spray bottle, some laser pointers, and an infinite supply of patience. Besides, KRK's mate added, watching as I gently coaxed Kevin down using the universal language of bribery, turns out Nexus cubs go crazy for synthesized salmon. Your species has that peculiar trait of treating all young as if they were your own. You mean we're suckers for anything baby-shaped? I muttered, catching click-click and snap-snap before they could start a game of who can headbutt the atmospheric regulator harder. The station AI chose that moment to remind everyone of my questionable qualifications. Attention all species. According to station records, Captain Roundhouse has previously provided emergency care for 17 Venusian acid spitters, 1 clutch of magnetar worms, 4 quantum pythons, and 1 particularly angry house cat. I winced. That cat was definitely the worst one. My comm unit buzzed as my assistant, Bob, Safety Manual Thompson, finally responded to my emergency message. Bob earned his nickname by actually reading and memorizing every safety protocol ever written for the station, which, given our current situation, might actually come in handy. Jackie, Bob's voice carried that special tone of someone who's already regretting getting out of bed. Please tell me we're not actually setting up an impromptu daycare for apex predator cubs. Okay, I won't tell you that. I'll just mention we're having some special guests in Recreation Module 7, and you might want to bring all the reinforced titanium toys from the diplomatic gift vault. The gathered crowd of other species watched in fascinated horror as I began basic introductions. The cubs, for their part, seemed to view me as some kind of fascinating new climbing frame. Kevin had already figured out how to use my shoulders as a launching pad for aerial attacks on his siblings. Captain, a horrified Globan ambassador oozed forward, their eye stalks trembling. Surely you're not seriously considering this. These are Nexus Predators. Their cubs can bite through battleship-grade armor. Actually, I said, scratching behind Kevin's ear plates in exactly the spot that made his leg thump against the floor. They can only bite through civilian-grade armor at this age. They don't develop their full jaw strength until adolescence. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of several species quietly updating their threat assessment databases. KRK made that clicking sound again, but this time I recognized it as their version of approval. This is exactly why we trust humans. You don't just tolerate dangerous young. You study them, understand them, care for them. Even your information networks are full of humans rehabilitating what other species would consider monsters. We call those cute animal videos, I explained, while simultaneously preventing Snap from testing the structural integrity of a nearby maintenance droid. The cub's parents spent the next 20 minutes giving me emergency contact information, dietary restrictions, basically anything that moves, and behavioral guidelines. Try not to let them disassemble essential station infrastructure. Meanwhile, Bob arrived with enough reinforced toys to keep a battalion of predator cubs occupied. The summit should last no more than 6 hours, KRK assured me, preparing to leave. They are already fed, so there should be no incidents. I nodded, already planning containment strategies that wouldn't technically violate any station's safety protocols. Don't worry, Ambassador. I once kept a teething magnetar worm entertained with nothing but a magnetic ball bearing and some string. We'll be fine. As the parents left and the cubs turned their full attention to exploring their new environment, and the humans foolish enough to volunteer as guardians, Bob leaned over and whispered, "You do remember that the magnetar worm incident ended with 3 destroyed gravity generators and a formal apology to the Galactic Council, right?" "Yeah," I sighed, watching as all 3 cubs began what appeared to be a coordinated attempt to test every safety feature in the recreation module simultaneously. "But this time we're prepared. What's the worst that could happen?" The universe, ever eager to answer rhetorical questions in the most dramatic way possible, was already warming up its sense of irony. Let me tell you something about managing predator cubs. No matter how well you plan, no matter how many safety protocols you follow, chaos finds a way. It's like Murphy's Law got together with Jurassic Park and had a baby. Then that baby decided to become an event planner specializing in disasters. Bob and I had converted Recreation Module 7 into what we hoped was a predator-proof playpen. We'd requisitioned every piece of reinforced equipment available, set up multiple redundant containment fields, and even installed a makeshift ball pit using decommissioned sensor spheres. The station AI had helpfully labeled this setup as Containment Zone Alpha in all official logs. "Okay," Bob said, checking his datapad for the 73rd time. "We've got emergency force field generators, backup power supplies, 3 different types of environmental controls, and enough enrichment activities to keep a whole pack of cubs busy." He paused, watching as Kevin systematically tested the structural integrity of every toy by trying to eat it. "We're still going to die, aren't we?" "Probably not," I replied, tossing a reinforced play sphere that snap caught with a kind of precision that made me very glad these cubs considered us friends rather than food. Nexus cubs are actually quite intelligent. They're basically like velociraptors crossed with border collies. Scary smart, but trainable if you keep them engaged. Click chose that moment to demonstrate this intelligence by figuring out how to open the toy storage container we'd specifically designed to be cub-proof. The resulting avalanche of titanium chew toys sounded like a percussion orchestra having a seizure. "See," I said, helping Click dig out from under the pile, "problem-solving skills." The first hour actually went surprisingly well. We established a few basic rules. No eating the environmental controls, no using humans as springboards. Kevin was particularly disappointed by this one. No attempting to help the maintenance droids evolve through combat. The cubs, much to everyone's surprise, seemed to grasp the concept of boundaries. They just chose to interpret them as interesting challenges rather than actual limits. "You know," Bob mused, watching as all 3 cubs collaborated to build what appeared to be a siege engine out of play equipment, "I'm starting to understand why their species achieved spaceflight so quickly. They've got that perfect combination of intelligence, curiosity, and complete disregard for personal safety." "Sounds familiar," I replied, recognizing more than a few parallels with humanity's own path to the stars. "Though I don't think our ancestors could bite through titanium, that we know of." The real challenge came during what I'll call the Great Snack Crisis. Despite their parents' assurance about feeding, cubs apparently operate on the same principle as human teenagers. They're always hungry, especially when there's important equipment nearby that really shouldn't be chewed on. "No, Kevin," I said for the 12th time, gently redirecting him away from a bundle of critical power conduits. "Those are spicy. They'll give you indigestion. Here, try this instead." I handed him a reinforced puzzle toy filled with synthesized meat products. Kevin gave me what I swear was the universal young predator expression for "but the forbidden snack looks tastier" before reluctantly accepting the substitute. The fact that a creature capable of biting through starship hull plating could be redirected with toys and treats still amazes me. That's when Click Click and Snap Snap decided to invent a new game I call "Let's Give the Humans Heart Attacks" by pretending to fall off high places, then catching ourselves at the last second. They were surprisingly good at it. "They're testing us," Bob realized after his third near-cardiac event. "They're trying to figure out how we'll react to perceived danger." I nodded, watching as the cubs demonstrated acrobatic abilities that would make Olympic gymnasts question their life choices. It's actually pretty standard behavior for social predator species. They're learning how their temporary caregivers handle stress. And how are we handling it? Well, you've only checked the safety protocols 42 times in the last hour, so I'd say we're doing better than expected. The cubs seem to approve of our relatively calm approach to their death-defying antics. They started including us in their games, simpler versions that wouldn't accidentally kill the squishy humans, and even began responding to basic commands, especially if those commands involved treats. "You realize," Bob said, as we watched all three cubs work together to solve a complex puzzle toy we designed to keep them occupied for hours. They solved it in 20 minutes. "That if anyone back on Earth could see us right now, playing catch with baby aliens that could theoretically eat us, they'd think we're completely insane." "Probably," I agreed, tossing another toy for Click Click to catch. "But then again, humans domesticated wolves by basically doing exactly this. Looking at a dangerous predator and thinking, I bet that could be friend-shaped with enough patience and treats." That's when the station's lights flickered, and everything went sideways, literally in some cases, as the artificial gravity hiccuped. Bob's eyes went wide as his data pad erupted with alerts. Jackie, remember how you asked what the worst that could happen was?" The emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in a red glow that made the cubs look even more prehistoric than usual. And they were all staring at the now-disabled containment field with the kind of interest that suggested they just discovered a new game. "Let me guess," I sighed, already moving to intercept three very excited predator cubs. "We're about to find out." There are certain moments in life when you realize that your career choices have led you down a very strange path. For me, that moment was crawling through a maintenance tunnel, armed with a bag of synthesized treats, following the trail of playfully destructive apex predator cubs while trying to avoid both station security and what appeared to be a very surprised group of smugglers. "Bob," I whispered into my comm unit, "please tell me you've got eyes on at least one of them." "Better than that," he replied, monitoring the station's internal sensors from what remained of our command center. "I've got a theory about what they're doing. Pull up the station's schematic on your data pad." I did, and immediately saw what he meant. The cubs weren't running randomly. They were moving in a pattern that systematically covered every major cargo route through the station, like they were hunting something or someone. "They're tracking a scent," I realized. The power fluctuation wasn't an accident, was it? Given that it perfectly coincided with a scheduled cargo transfer in Bay 12, not likely. The cubs must have picked up on something we missed. A series of crashes and alarmed shouts echoed from somewhere ahead of me, followed by the distinctive sound of Nexus cubs playing their favorite game. Chase the interesting thing until it stops moving. I rounded a corner just in time to see three very frightened individuals in maintenance uniforms trying to figure out how to escape from a dead end, while three very enthusiastic predator cubs blocked their exit. Kevin, bless his predatory little heart, was doing that head-tilt thing that all young hunters do when they're trying to figure out if something is prey, toy, or friend. "Don't move," one of the smugglers whispered to his companions. Their vision is based on movement. I couldn't help myself. Actually, their vision is based on highly advanced optical organs that can process information faster than our best quantum computers. They're not moving because they're waiting to see what I want them to do. The smugglers spun around, which was exactly the wrong move. Click, click, and snap, snap immediately pounced, herding them back into their corner with the kind of coordinated teamwork that would make a wolf pack proud. So, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt, want to explain why you needed to disable station power during a diplomatic summit, and maybe what's in those cases you're trying very hard to hide. This is none of your business, the lead smuggler growled, reaching slowly for something in his pocket. Just call off your monsters and walk away. Kevin, apparently offended by either the monster comment or the threatening movement, chose that moment to demonstrate why Nexus Predators are considered the galaxy's apex predators. He didn't attack. He simply bit through the smuggler's pocket, removing both the weapon and a significant portion of the uniform in one precise motion. Fun fact about Nexus cubs, I commented as the weapon clattered to the floor, they're actually more controlled than adults. An adult would have just eaten the whole arm. The smugglers, finally displaying something resembling wisdom, raised their hands in surrender. Okay, it's just some prohibited tech. We were hired to disrupt the summit. No one was supposed to get hurt. I activated my comm unit. Security, yeah, we're going to need a team in maintenance Tunnel 14C and bring treats. The good ones. These cubs just earned them. While we waited for security to arrive, I watched in amazement as the cubs maintained their guard positions with perfect discipline. They'd seamlessly switched from playful youngsters to efficient predators and back again, proving exactly why their species had evolved to rule their corner of the galaxy. I don't suppose, the smuggler said hopefully, that this could stay between us. We could make it worth your while. Click Click responded with a growl that needed no translation. Yeah, that's what I thought, the smuggler sighed. Bob's voice crackled over the comm. Security is almost there. How are our little law enforcement officers doing? I looked at the cubs, who had started playing, who can look more intimidating while still keeping the smugglers contained. Let's just say they've earned themselves an extra-long play date with the magnetic ball launcher when this is over. And that's how 3 Nexus cubs, 2 humans with questionable career choices, and 1 very detailed station safety manual managed to uncover and stop a plot to disrupt interstellar diplomacy. Though, explaining to the cubs' parents how their children ended up joining Station Security's K9 unit, which was rapidly renamed to the X9 unit for obvious reasons, was going to be an interesting conversation. At least we had video evidence of their excellent behavior, even if most of that video involved property damage. The thing about babysitting apex predator cubs that nobody tells you, mostly because nobody thought anyone would ever need to know, is that the hardest part isn't keeping them from eating important things. It's explaining to their parents why their precious offspring now want to be space cops. So, KRK said, her secondary jaw clicking in what I really hoped was amusement. Our cubs not only escaped containment, but also apprehended criminal elements aboard the station. In our defense, I replied, while Kevin demonstrated his new security training by methodically searching Bob for treats. They showed excellent judgment and restraint. No one was eaten, maimed, or even seriously frightened. I paused. Well, except for the smugglers. The security footage played on the briefing room's main screen, showing 3 Nexus cubs performing a textbook containment maneuver that somehow looked both terrifying and adorable. Station Security Chief Martinez was practically vibrating with excitement. "Ambassador," she said, trying to maintain professional composure while watching Click Click demonstrate perfect perimeter technique. I would very much like to discuss establishing an official exchange program between our security forces and your younger citizens. KRK's mate made a sound that I'd learned meant deep consideration. You wish to train our cubs as law enforcement, using humans as handlers. Think of it as an internship, I suggested, with lots of enrichment activities and occasional crime fighting. The cubs, sensing they were the topic of discussion, lined up in front of their parents and performed their best. We are very good and definitely deserve this display, which, given that they were covered in evidence of their earlier rampage through the station's maintenance tunnels, was surprisingly effective. Besides, Bob added, finally managing to distract Kevin from his security sweep with a puzzle toy, they showed remarkable discipline. Did you know they cataloged every maintenance violation they found during their chase? We've got 15 pages of safety infractions, complete with location markers. I couldn't be sure, but I think KRK actually looked proud. They get that from their mother's side, she said, while her mate pretended to be offended. That's when Station Director